All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is another episode of the Chug Life podcast, and today I have a friend of mine. I'm very excited to have him on here. Briggs, what's up, man?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to get all of this shit talking going. It's going to be a blast. Today, we're going to be discussing all of the horrors of modern warfare and the solutions that are coming up and that could be implemented for some of them. Some of them, there aren't any solutions. I think ballistics and ballistic missiles as a whole it's kind of tapped out. They're working on the lasers. I think the lasers do have the best potential,
Mm.
but I don't know if it's gonna be like costly enough quickly enough to make a difference. Like it seems like they only have like one or two. I haven't really
Yeah, I know
seen
the.
that.
I know us Brits have been developing one that was proven to be quite good in testing, and I believe we gave Ukraine early access to the tech, but you haven't really heard much about it since the government change.
Hmm. Yeah, I think I might have heard about that, but I wonder if that has any connection to what the Israelis are using. Because they've just kind of like said it's a laser beam.
Mm.
So I'm curious there because it looks like it works, and it's honestly incredible if they can make that available for any kind of projectile. And
Yeah,
then you have, because the big worry here is that's the delivery for nukes. So if you can just stop the vessel, then maybe the system that's inside of the nuclear warhead won't engage, and maybe you can stop the nuke as a whole, and then you'll just have a big splash maybe, or some
yeah. Well,
shrapnel. But
I'm not too sure about the modern mechanics of nuclear weapons because obviously during World War Two, it was two big bombs where atoms just got driven into each other, aren't they? And that required a charge. So if you were to take the missile out with the laser, would you deactivate the charge that fires the atoms at each other? But it's one of those questions. But if you're gonna fire a laser at a ballistic missile, you want to be damn sure that it's not going to blow the missile up in orbit or in the air because they're even more deadly when you
hmm,
blow up a nuclear weapon in the air, aren't they?
yeah, I mean that was the big worry about rupturing the like, I think it was the ozone layer or
Mm,
something, that
yeah.
if you did it that close, then what was to stop it from just keep rupturing throughout space or something like that. It was like the big worry of ending the world in that case. With some of the bigger ones, I'm not sure about the smaller ones honestly, but it is interesting stuff. But we're kind of going far from the subject with nukes in ballistic missiles. We're not really. I don't think we'll ever see that stuff. Honestly, I think it would be more like pocket nukes.
Yeah,
So like
tactical nukes.
yeah, like I think it would be much, because I'm realizing with countries like Iran, they have a large amount of funding that they're able to put into rockets and stuff like that to be able to kind of like pound their chest and be like, we're
Mm,
strong.
yeah.
But with smaller countries, I think it would be smarter in that regard to go with something that's less flashy but more effective. And if you're able to, like, some of these countries are saying that they have sleeper cells and things like that. If you're able to activate those kind of guys, that I think is more effective for the economic part of the whole plan. But I don't know. I don't really know enough to kind of go off on that tangent.
It
of
can sound really
like
just theory crafting,
I
can't
mean, yeah, cuz like the whole thing with ballistics is like if you have enough stuff in terms of you can put warheads together that are worth it. Like, because if you're going to have single unitary warheads and you're going against a peer to peer, it's not worth it because they're going to have anti ballistic capable interceptors. So it's just
you?
it's you need clusters, you need MIRVs, so you're able to wear down that anti air portion of their inventory.
That's where
And
the drone swarms come in,
exactly,
because
exactly.
they overwhelm and distract your anti-air, don't they? And then the missiles can get through. I mean, if you look at the war in Russia, I listened to a podcast called Ukraine the Latest by the Telegraph. It's fantastic,
Oh yes.
and every time they go through the drone and missile attacks, and they say how many drones got through and how many missiles got through. There are sometimes 500-600 drones getting through, and a very small percentage actually get through and do damage. But then you look at the ballistic missiles, and it's only like 10 to 20, and only a few get through. But it's a much higher percentage of the ballistic missiles get through than the drones actually get through.
Those guys have been training at that, and that's kind of when you look at Israel, the stark difference in the interception rates. It's incredible, and
Yeah,
I wonder if there is a huge difference in the training and the capacity of their training because they've been kind of dealing with these mortar and rocket attacks that the Iron Dome takes care of. And I'm not sure if they've had the practice to be able to be on the Ukrainian level of intercepting like they do.
yeah. Well, it's a scalability as well. As you said, Israel have been dealing with the rocket and mortar attacks with the Iron Dome. Um, One could hazard a guess that they could use the knowledge from that to scale up to say, okay, we need something that looks higher into the sky, and then another layer like David Sling that goes even higher than that to try and take things out further up in the atmosphere. The Ukrainians haven't done that. The Ukrainians are having to learn on the fly, whereas the Israelis have had decades to think about, okay, so how do we scale up these short range defense measures into taking things out like ballistic missiles?
I'm also aware, y'all, that one country's way bigger than the other. All right, just don't even start. I know you're going for it, but I think out of all of the horrors here, the biggest worry is, of course, the swarms of FPVs because the Shahids are dangerous, and sure they can do damage, but the FPV drones are, I think, the biggest worry. And with these guys, the Ukrainians have come up with this huge, ingenious solution of putting fishing nets to cover, like, kind of a tunnel of fishing nets
Yeah,
around important roads and areas. And it's important to have that as well within the sectors you have trenched, so that way it's a layer of protection for stuff that's coming in, especially these FPVs. But I wonder, and I've always wondered, do they have any effectiveness with regular RPG warheads, like just coming in?
I see what you saying, like with the nets stop and
Yeah.
snag RPGs when they come. It would depend, because if you think about an RPG is being fired much faster and it's a pointed edge, whereas a
Yeah, I wonder if
drone,
it's going through.
yeah, the drones are obviously a lot wider, and they have propellers that can get snagged. The moment you take the propellers out, any momentum is gone. Unless it dive bombs from up on high. But even then, there's a lot more to snag. Whereas I would argue an RPG travels a lot faster. It's a pointed tip. Even if it did hit the net, it would most likely just rip straight through it. I do know that quite a lot of the nets that have been donated came from Scotland. They're old fishing nets from like the North Sea.
Makes
So,
sense.
yeah, but I would imagine that pretty much every country that's got spare fishing nets is sending them over. But I mean, it's an ingenious way of dealing with a problem on the fly. Um, but from what I was reading and seeing on Reddit and online, is that shotguns are the most effective way of taking them out close range. Obviously, that carries risks because if you let it get too close and you shoot it and you hit the warhead,
Yep.
it blows up in your face. But the buckshot effect takes out the drone. And this is going to be pure fantasy, Mike. But I remember seeing years ago on it was one of these documentary channel things where they just made guns. And do you know, I can't remember what they're called, SK shotguns. They're fully automatic and they have like an AK-47 style magazine.
Yeah.
Someone mounted 8 of those on a revolving drum and used it as essentially a Gatling shotgun. And I'm sat there thinking, if fantasy wise, if you could have loads of those along the lines, you could put down a lot of fire to take out a drone.
Oh,
Bit overkill.
absolutely. Absolutely. And the best part about it is if you can swap those guns out to just be like whatever you've got on hand, you could
Mm.
just slap it on there, in a tight ammo situation, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just bullshitting here now, but
Put a load of Desert Eagles on there and hope
oh
for the best.
man, shit, we're all out. Let's just put a bunch of M9s on there and see how that goes.
But yeah, I think that would be the best answer because you see videos of it. It's like this is the most documented war ever.
Yeah.
This Ukraine war and obviously the Israel war with Palestine. All the missiles and everything coming in.
Yeah.
So there's tranches of videos filmed from people's mobile phones where you see a guy with a shotgun taking out a drone, and 9 times out of 10 they take it out. Obviously, you're not going to see the other one time because the guy with the phone is usually the guy getting hit by the drone.
It's incredible to think that there still hasn't really been a large response within how the US is prepared to deal with drones, because now they're
Mm.
being harassed in Iraq with FPVs, or not them, but the Iraqis are being harassed. And it's just like you've seen this. It's been happening for years at this point. You've
Yeah,
seen it on your phone and you still haven't prepared. Like, what the hell is going on?
and also it's not just those two conflicts. You're seeing it when you see these ISIS insurgents in Africa. You see it in Myanmar, or what used to be called Burma. Everybody's learnt from what's going on in Ukraine and realizing that drones are just as effective, if not more effective, than actually advancing with boots on the ground. Why sending people to die when you can just swarm a position with drones and then go in and mop up after?
Yeah, that's one of the principal things the Ukrainians have become almost masters at. Is
Mm,
I've seen some of these reports from the Russian commanders that came out of positions with one or two guys left, and that's basically what they've said. Is there's swarms of drones that come in, they pick us all off, and then it's all we hear is the rumble of APCs, and then they come in and shoot all of our guys. And
yeah.
it rinse and repeat. That's how they've been able to take back whole swarms of Zaporizhia. And it's just gonna keep going. They're gonna go all the way to Mariupol, hopefully, and
Oh
take
yeah, I hope so.
Crimea.
And you know me, I'm not the biggest fan of Elon Musk, but you got to give credit where credit's due. Him, you know, turning off Starlink for the Russians has definitely been a massive turning point in the war.
Yeah, now we're buying their fucking oil, so that's great. It's just give
Yeah.
one to take another. I guess it's so
Oh
annoying,
God.
dude.
What's more annoying? This is a bit of a UK politics story here. Is obviously we've stopped drilling for oil in the North Sea, and there are millions, if not billions, of barrels there.
Wow.
And we're going to suffer a lot more than other countries because of this, like most of Europe. But we have our own oil supply, but we've stopped drilling it. And the insult to injury is that we're buying it off of Scandinavian countries who are drilling the same oil deposit. Because you might as well just spend the money, drill your own oil, and
Oh
guarantee
my
fuel security.
god.
Yeah, it's just yeah. Let's
That
not go
is
down the UK politic
moronic.
route.
That is, and was that Boris that did that?
No, no, that was, oh. I think it might have been before Boris, but we haven't drilled North Sea oil for a long time now because the UK used to be the poor man of Europe. We were in dire straits. We
Yeah.
debased the currency, all that kind of stuff, and then we found oil in the North Sea, and suddenly, we could pull ourselves out of being, in recessions and having a really low standard of living. And we drill, baby, drilled, as Trump put it. We got loads of oil out, and then yeah, when this whole green thing comes in, which I'm not knocking, we do need to think about the planet, but at the same time, it's like you've got a finite but a very large supply of oil, and we stopped drilling it
Mm.
just to try and save the planet when no one else stopped drilling. And now everybody compares the UK to Scandinavia. Their quality of life is fantastic. It's because they're making a crap ton, a metric shit ton of money selling the oil that we could drill, and they've got their sovereign wealth fund, which means they can provide more for their citizens, and the UK is just ebbing away slowly. Like we're not even a world power anymore. That's how bad it's getting.
Hey, neither are
But
we.
I don't know. But we digress. We digress. We digress.
Right. We're going down the same paths. I mean, we have been losing out on jobs for I think 6 months now. It's gas is going up, food's going up, everything's going up. We're in a war, so we're I think last episode I touched on this as well. We're technically in a recession now.
Yeah.
And in a year, if this keeps going, it's going to be officially a depression, because I believe it's 4 financial cycles of downturn.
Yeah.
So we will see how that rolls out. By Christmas, we will see. But on to what's, I guess, kind of related to it would be cyber attacks and what the damages that cyber attacks can bring on whole sectors. As recently seen, Iran did a cyber attack on an American company, and these guys have a bunch of basically medical devices that they make, and Iran just wiped out all of their mobile access codes and stuff, so they basically nobody could get access to the servers. And then on top of that, they had threatened that they were going to wipe out the credit card debt of all Americans in the U.S. So out of all of these issues, and this comes off the back of Trump defunding all of the departments that would be responsible for this. So we
Yeah.
are weaker than ever with this kind of stuff. And this is a huge part of what Russia what Russia is capable of doing, what North Korea is also capable of doing, and it's scary shit, man. But
Mhm. Well, you
I
see it in you see. So my wife is got me into it. Sorry, you watch all of like the FBI and all the American crime series, and you always see it that they come in and they can literally just turn off pacemakers, that kind of thing. Like it goes from the really small, where you can hack something that's wireless and you send a virus in. It can go even as large. You can literally shut down an entire country's transportation just by hacking and ransoming off the computer systems of like the London Underground. If you imagine
yeah,
if that happened during rush hour, you'd have hundreds of thousands of people stuck underground with
all you
trains
gotta
that could come
do
on at any moment.
the I think a scary one as well would be cell phone service,
Hmm.
knocking out large portions of, if not all, cell phone service would be
Everybody would lose their
catastrophic.
shit.
Yeah.
Everybody would lose their shit because everybody is glued to their phone. That would have a much bigger psychological impact than an economical one because everybody would like, how do I get on Facebook? How do I feed that addiction?
I think that's one of the good things of having all of these different companies and whatnot, because they're
Mm.
all on their own grids. So hopefully it's enough to where that can't happen. But man, that would be horrific stuff.
But you'd like to think that. I mean, I can only obviously speak about the UK in this. So we've got the GCHQ, which is not far from where I live actually. It's a big the donut we called it, and it's one of the world's most advanced, intelligence and anti-cyber attack places going, but I think we're probably very much out of practice because we always hear about the things that happen. We never hear about the things they stop. But yeah, I think most countries are would be out of practice with cyber attacks purely based on the fact that it's always probing. Russia here doing a little thing with air freight, like you said, with Iran doing their thing. Like it's little probing attacks. If they did a full-on, all-out cyber war, I think most countries would not collapse, but communications would go down, the transportation would stop, food supply would stop, oil supply would stop. They could do more damage with that than they could by dropping a nuke on a capital city.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think a nuke is much worse for everybody as a whole because of the. I mean, just depending on the size, I guess, but the amount of wind as well having that effect of dragging
Mm.
that shit across the entirety of the earth is not a fun concept.
Yeah, yeah, and I'd like to think Russia are smart enough not to do it in the UK. Either they threaten it, but they don't seem to realise the jet stream goes up over the UK and then comes back down into Russia, so they're just gonna like literally radiate themselves.
You know what's hilarious is how they do all of this shit about, oh, we're gonna nuke you to Ukraine, and it's like, all right, so if you did it literally anywhere in Ukraine, you're just gonna bring all that right back to you,
Yep.
and it's just not only that, but then you're gonna piss off all of the neighbors that are sitting there watching this nuclear fucking mushroom.
Mm.
It's just like pissing everybody off for absolutely no reason. Aside from the reason they could just pack a shit up and leave to nuke basically everybody, because that's kind of what happens with a nuke. It's gonna go everywhere. That kind of nuclear
Yep.
radiation. It
And
just,
and
ugh.
and think about it on a more logical sense. It's like if Russia does decide to nuke everybody, right? Russia has to hit a lot of places with a very limited supply of very old nukes. Everybody only has to hit Russia.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not good for anybody. But I don't see how they haven't factored that in. Because they've got to think about it, if they want to take out Europe, they've got to hit France, Germany, Holland, UK, Denmark, Poland, all of these countries. There's at least 20 countries. America. And we'll just have to hit Moscow and maybe a couple of other cities. And judging by their air defenses, in fact, all these Ukrainian drones can get hundreds,
Yep.
sometimes up to 1,000 kilometers
They could definitely
into
get to
their
the Kremlin,
airspace.
dude. I'm
Yeah,
surprised they haven't.
they ain't stopping shit.
So, next on the list is going to be saturated medium sized drone swarms. And this is like the Ukrainian Baba Yagas, Shahids. So, huge payload capable drones. These are bigger than FPVs, and they can sometimes have way greater range, 2,000 kilometers. Very
And
nasty
they,
stuff.
they can glide as well because they're aerodynamic. It's not like a drone. The moment the propellers stop, it drops out the sky. But a Shahid, it's got wings. It can glide and it can be silent. A bit like the glide bombs, because those are old bombs. They just strap a couple of fins to it in a GPS and it can go a lot further.
It's nasty.
So, mm, I don't know any. So my answer, and this will probably become a common theme, is obviously they can't go too high. I suppose they could in theory, but whenever you see them, they're always a couple of 100 feet up. Spag, self-propelled aircraft guns. I
Yeah.
I don't know why we stopped doing it. You've got the Gepard, and they've proved incredibly effective. Um, and us Brits, we stopped developing them. I looked at it a while ago. So we used to have something called the Marksman, and the idea was we would put it on top of a T-55 tank. But it's just two Orlican, or I always get this wrong, Orlicon or Orlicans, strapped in with a radar. And I think Spag is the best way to bring them down. But there's
Hmm.
just not enough of it. America has got PVADs, which I absolutely love, especially in Warner,
Yep.
because they shred everything. Um, got the Gepard. I don't really know of many others. I would assume the Finns have got some.
But that
Most,
that is on the expensive side as well.
yeah,
And to kind of hit on some of the less expensive stuff, you can just kind of put a 50 cal on the back of a truck and send it like the Ukrainians do.
yeah, yeah. Or what I found was really effective and actually made me laugh my ass off is two Ukrainian guys in an old propeller yak for shotgun.
Oh yes, yep.
Yeah, I think that would be, that would provide comedy value and entertainment for the people watching, but at the same time, it's cheap. Those planes are easily replaceable because they're built of paper mache and steel or aluminium chassis and a shotgun.
It's genius, man. Yeah, I think some of the best solutions, the more practical solutions as well, are the Sting drones from the Ukrainian side.
Yeah.
These
Hmm.
things are VTOL launched. Basically, warhead is the drone, and it just slams into whatever drone it's searching for. And they are incredibly potent, and man, they can make a lot of them. They are sending these across to the Gulf states to help the U.S. try and invade Iran.
Yeah.
And man, I'm kind of excited to see what these things can do.
They look almost, I can't remember what series I watched, but they look almost like mini spaceships, don't they? They get launched from the Earth up into the
I think
atmosphere.
of them like bullets,
Yeah, actually, yeah, probably that's
like a
probably more
bullet with
accurate.
fins.
Yeah, but
Like
yeah,
that's a great design.
and I think Ukraine said they can produce up to 50,000 a month, and they'd give 10,000 away to like the United Arab Emirates and Dubai and stuff
Imagine
like that.
that.
But I think Zelensky said something really interesting about the Patriots because obviously this round of the U.S. war, I've seen a lot of Patriots going up for these Shaheeds, and Zelensky said, you've given us 600 in 4 years or whatever it is, but in 4 days you've shot 800 at these drones.
Oh my
So obviously that
god.
has a knock on effect of there being less supply for Ukraine to get hold of. But at the same time, these are not cheap missiles. Patriots are a couple millions of dollars, and they're firing them at Shaheads that cost what, a couple of thousand.
Yeah.
So yeah, Ukraine have a real opportunity here to say to the world, and they've shown it. Like
I
we've
think
got these.
there's it's kind of worse than that as well because it makes it so much more obvious that not only is the US being greedy as fuck, but
Mm,
also like it's not Ukraine's fault. Like they can't say, "Oh, we've given all of our supply to Ukraine. It's Ukraine's fault that we're having these struggles." Like, no, these fucking moronic guys in Israel at the control of these batteries are sending 10 to 12 interceptors at one fucking ballistic missile and failing. There's a
mm.
huge failure at training here, and the experience is lacking, then it shows.
Yeah, right. I mean, if you look at the wars that U.S. and even the West in general have fought in the last couple of decades, they've all been insurgency wars. So there's not been ballistic missiles, um, very many drones, especially drones like Shahed coming in. It's all been boots on the ground, appease the people, take out cells.
Yep.
So this is we're talking when we're talking these drones coming in, we're talking industrial size warfare, and we're going against two countries, or we're talking about two countries in Russia and Iran that have an industrial base that's built specifically for these drones. Not obviously not their entire industrial base, but they have industries that are geared towards mass producing these drones. I mean, how else can Russia send 400, 500, sometimes 600 drones per night over the border into Ukraine? It's because they have an entire industry geared towards war right now,
Yep.
and we don't have that. Like, look at it, America. They produce some of the most advanced weapons in the world, but that's just a load of peacetime defense companies producing these. If you want to overwhelm and destroy these drones and have zero losses, you're going to have to start turning your car factories, your tractor factories, Boeing factories into these military grade or military producing industries to try and
Mhm.
combat this because Russia's only going to be they just keep going to get further and further ahead.
That's kind of, I guess, the big difference where we're at right now, where Congress hasn't declared war, where it hasn't officially been um, declared a war, I guess. So it's, it
Mm,
stops a lot of that industrial involvement. And, to take it a step further, it's going to prevent a lot of what he's going to need, I think, because they're going to need to ramp up all of this missile interceptor stuff, and it's not going to be able to happen as fast as they're going to need it.
mm,
I think Iran can take advantage of that time that it takes for all of this to be rebuilt because they're so far behind in all of these radars that are getting destroyed being able to be replaced. There's less than a handful. Stuff's having to be brought from other countries to be able to fill that gap, and it's a danger zone that we're in right now with all of
mm-hmm.
that.
Well, I've just done a quick Google. The main production facility for Patriot missiles is a place in Arkansas. Right, so one place with an expansion planned, keyword planned in Europe. So,
Wow.
that's one factory in America. If what I've just typed in, and they produces 500 missiles annually. Right,
To
five
be
hundred
fair,
bloody
that's what we
missiles.
know. So like it could
Yeah,
be a bit
yeah,
more, a bit less.
yeah. I mean, then obviously you got to think there's been stock. They've been building these for well over a decade. So you've got a stockpile of them, but it stands to reason that's going to get through. You're going to get through that very quickly. I mean, the West will get through that very quickly if it goes to full war because the drones can be produced at 500 a month.
And we are shitting money away, dude. It's like 3 billion a day or something.
I'm jealous. We don't have that. It took us bloody like a week to get a destroyer ready to get to Cyprus. They planned it for 6 weeks. The war probably would be over by that point.
I doubt it, dude. This thing's not gonna be over anytime soon.
Mm.
That's yeah, it's not happening, man. This thing's gonna drag on. It's gonna be Vietnam 2.0. That's my theory.
I just pray to God that it stays limited to Iran and the US because if the world gets involved, it just makes the axis of evil stronger, doesn't it? Because Russia then can be like, oh look, everyone's focused on Iran and they're going to put boots on the ground around NATO and get involved in Iran and nobody cares about Ukraine anymore.
Here's the thing. I've thought about that quite a bit. Russia cannot do sustained war on multiple fronts.
No.
It cannot do sustained war on one front. So I
Yeah.
I've put that out of, like, sure, it could launch, a few battalions worth of guys into a few states and harass a couple of towns and cities for maybe an hour, and then
Mm.
they would all die. And that
Yeah.
would be that. Then those countries would have a bunch of pissed off civilians and armies going across into Russia, and that would be game over. China, on the other hand, I think has a lot of time right now that they can use the distraction and the pull away because they're slowly pulling away stuff from Korea.
Hmm.
And soon enough, I'm wondering if they're going to start. They're already pulling the Marines out of Japan. So I'm wondering if sooner or later all of that is just going to lead to more assets being pulled into the Middle East, and that's going to give China from, initially it was, 48 hours the Americans will be able to be there. Now it looks more like it would be close to a week.
China's a sleeping giant here as well. Fair enough. They haven't been involved in any major wars since their their glorious revolution, whatever they call it. But they've got enough equipment. It's homegrown as well. They don't rely on other people sending them stuff. Homegrown equipment to fail upwards. They may lose a couple of engagements through, not knowing tactics and stuff like that in real war, but they can fail upwards. They'll learn quickly. But yeah, all they're waiting for is everyone to get too distracted, to get pulled into too many wars, too many fingers and too many pies, and then that's it. They'll just go for Taiwan. I don't think they'll take Taiwan with any
No,
ease because that is like a porcupine. That thing's got more missiles and defenses on it than I think most of Europe has pointed at Russia, but it's a very real possibility.
I think
It's
that there's two parts of me currently. One thinks that China wants nothing to do with anything and is just relaxing, trying to get over his economic instability. And then
hmm
on the other hand, I see how they're reaching out through Africa and how they're involved in Iran and how they may or may not be involved in North Korea being emboldened enough to get into Ukraine. And I kind of wonder if they're using all of these as kind of mini war game scenarios, because they
yeah.
have these naval intelligence ships off the coast of Iran. They're just soaking up information, watching how things play out. And I think it just gives them a lot of ideas more than anything because now they're able to see, okay, this is how the US would do things, and let's compare it to how we would do things, and then we can kind of see, have war games based off of these two scenarios and figure out what's better. And that shit's dangerous, and it makes for a lot of room to have accidents happen where, groups may get confused and attack the wrong ship or something like that with Chinese citizens or something like that can happen where I believe it's already happened, but there's a lot of situations where it's just going to be friendly fire and it's going to continue to escalate into a greater war.
Yeah, and let's not forget that China is one of the biggest producers of just retail drones. So they
Yeah.
provide all the parts for all of the. Like I've got a little drone, DG Magic Mavic. I was going to donate it, but I enjoy flying it too much. But it's most of it's produced in China. They've got at least 5 to 10 years more advanced sort of knowledge on how to build drones and probably how to fly them before we even thought about using them as FPV drones.
Hmm. Well, to be fair, flying FPVs came out of the Middle East. It came out of Iraqi, I think, Peshmerga units,
Mm.
the Kurds, and some of the ISIS groups as well had started using them. It was like 2015, somewhere around there, but yeah, it became a big thing in the Ukrainian war. It's just there's some counters to this stuff, but it's few and far in between. It's very expensive shit. Like that gun that shoots nets. Like that's
Yes.
interesting stuff, but it's expensive.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And you've got the e-war side of it, so you can try and block and jam signals and stuff, but it won't be long until somebody finds out a way or finds a new way of controlling drones that you don't have a counter for.
Yeah. Oh, that is the fiber optics ones.
Yeah, but I mean, well, you see it on the videos online, don't you? Just fields strewn with what looks like those you see those trees in Louisiana that have all the cobwebs on them. It looks like that, but it's just fiber optic cables.
Yeah.
But we'll run out of fiber optic cables eventually, I'm sure of it, and then everyone will wonder why their internet doesn't work because there's no more cables left.
They've been all used up in Ukraine.
Yeah.
All right, so up next is bomb shelters. Bomb shelters have been a huge, huge part of concern in Israel as some have been directly hit by ballistic missiles, and it's been found that they do not actually protect you. And in some cases, it can actually make it a pressure cooker, and you guys will be dead in a flash.
Well, if you think about it, bomb shelters are a historical thing. You know, when bombs were dropped from planes flying over Germany and the UK and Europe and all that. You know, the ballistic missiles aren't designed like that. Ballistic missiles have always been um, for accuracy with enough warhead to blow a building up. And 9 times out of 10, it'll probably go through the building before it blows up. And you think, look at you guys over in the US with your bunker busters. That's going to go through the building and hit the bunker. That they need to be built either deeper or I don't know. That's the only answer I can come up with is build them deeper or build them in a mountain. But then you don't have many cities that have a mountain spare, do they? Do you?
Yeah. Well, you have actually quite a few issues here. The advent of the Moab, so the
Hmm.
30,000 pound mother of all bombs, that kind of just makes bunkers as a whole for the population really worthless. But
Mm.
I can't really think of a situation where that would be used to kill civilians in a bunker directly, unless it lands near it, and in which case it's tough. You can have them be underground by 30 to 40 meters, but I don't know if it's going to matter with the kind of rupture that you could have within the earth from these huge bombs detonating right
Yeah.
next to it. It could just end up making it a coffin. So there's a lot to go into in regards to tunneling and kind of having a lot of areas where you could escape and exit from in different areas. So it would kind of end up having to be a city underground. But in this case, it would just seem that you're preparing for war, and this would kind of be like a Hamas esque type of tunnel system where it's just a big old city.
I think we're forgetting the fact that bomb shelters are not designed, or have never been designed to um, take direct hits. I mean, if you look at the Blitz and the old Anderson shelters during World War II, that was just literally a fairly deep trench with a bit of corrugated iron put over the top, and then you'd put earth over it. They're not designed to take a hit from a bomb. They're designed to protect you from the building next to the bomb shelter that's getting hit. You know, from debris flying around and from shockwaves. That's why they're built with the curved reef. So I don't think you can ever really build a bomb shelter unless you, like I say, you build it so far underground with ways to stop pressure building up. Bomb shelters are just to protect, give people a sense of protection and better protection against the fallout from a bomb. But a bomb is always going to hit a bomb shelter and destroy it.
Yeah, I think that the absolute best defense for all of this is to just have a strong air defense network
Hmm.
and also have just complete ownership of the skies. So
Yeah,
it's one of the main things that, although Ukraine is a whole different scenario with standoff munitions and cruise missiles being used, how they are, ballistics and whatnot, um, those direct hits, they have their railroads, like their underground railroads, to be used. So kind
yeah.
of like they have these huge, magnificent tunnels in the underground there that are
And
just
that'll dissipate any pressure effects as well. If you
yeah.
think about it, the reason, I mean, it's obviously going to hurt if you get hit by a pressure wave, but if you're in a sealed room and the bomb drops at the entrance, the pressure wave has got nowhere to go except bounce around that room and build up and build up. Whereas, if it hits a an underground system, that pressure wave can just travel all through all the tunnels, can't it, and just dissipate. Yeah, people will get hurt, but there's more chance of any shock wave or pressure buildup just dissipating amongst the system.
Yeah, it's kind of freaky to think about how much munitions have been brought into this war, like just with
Hmm.
seeing for the first time MIRVs for the first time seeing FPVs. For the first time, you're seeing large swarms of drones. For the first time, you're seeing laser beams to be used against drones. You're
Yeah,
seeing,
thermobarics.
yeah, it's crazy stuff, man. You know, you're seeing these huge car-sized like quad peller drones just dropping frag grenades and mortar rounds, and man, it is wild stuff.
Mm. And you can't just have an entire population underground all the time because I mean just look at the what the Russians call the Safari in Kherson. You know, that's a city that's been liberated for quite some time now, and they're just flying these drones over the river and just dropping bombs on people just going out doing their daily business. So you can't build an underground city underneath to house a city in a very short time frame, and you can't expect people to spend all night, all day, all night, every day in a bomb shower.
Yeah, I believe that's one of the towns that's getting the project of the fishnets,
Yeah,
but we'll
they're
see
stringing
how
it up
that works out.
over all the main roads so that you know. But then again, is it going to stop a grenade or an RPG being dropped down?
Yeah, yeah, these are good questions. Mortar rounds maybe could get through grenades. I wonder if grenades would get through as well. That would be a problem, but you know, it does solve the problem of ambushes. It solves a lot of problems to,
Yeah,
you know, mines as well. I think that that would be able to be decreased a good amount. Maybe not anti-personnel mines. Maybe those could get through, but you know, it you win some, you lose some with these kind of solutions. That you know, it's ad hoc. It's meant to be a stopgap. So then maybe you could get electronic warfare units in there safely, and maybe you
yeah,
could get more drone units in there to do their work and find these guys. Because it's a big old hunting field out there. You know, they send these electromagnetic warfare guys out there. They hunt the radar source, and then they send the FPV units out there and tell them, "Hey, look in this area. We think he's out here." And
yeah.
it's just a big old assassination squad, basically, at this point.
I think you're like going back to what you said. Like, air superiority is the way forward. Yeah, it's the best form of defense, but also just being able to push these attacks, the origin points of these attacks further and further away, so that you know these drones they can only fly. I mean, my drone only flies for 30 minutes on a battery, so you need to push the origin point further away so that they can't do that. But you know, that would mean Ukraine would have to attack over a river,
Mm.
push them away from Kherson, which just isn't realistic at the moment, is it?
No, that's another danger point of modern warfare at this moment is having these big operations, because that is just food for these drone operators. I mean,
Mm,
they are just throwing themselves to get into these operations to kill these guys crossing. And you've seen a lot of it. I have seen a lot of it from the Ukrainian side of them slamming these pontoon bridges that the Russians put down, and seeing the whole river just strewn with Russian bodies. And it is just horrifying, because there's no way that you're going to get the time to lay that down and be able to start doing anything without drones hitting you, unless you have an EW unit there.
mm,
And the Russians don't have that capability on hand. I think that the Ukrainians are getting closer to having that be more widespread. But I think that the main focus right now may be the big Magyar unit, which is kind of expanding into a huge. It's kind of, it loans drone operators, and it swaps people to be able to train people, and then it also supplies people that are interested in becoming drone operators. So
Yeah.
that way, individual units can pick up the skill and the ability to have drone operators on hand because it just increases the survivability of a unit tenfold.
Yeah, in drone operators, a guy in a wheelchair to do that. You think about it, it requires more technical skill than pure brute strength and tactical training. So, I mean, the way the world's going towards drone warfare, pretty much anybody that has their faculties and two hands could become a drone operator, which vastly increases your pool of potential recruits for drone warfare.
Yeah, what you just do is once the guys leave the hospital and they're like cleared, you
Mm,
take them to the recruiting at the drone unit and put them straight into the drone unit.
yeah, and especially if they're like, they've come back from the front line, they'll have a tactical knowledge of warfare, so that they can identify things that the guy you pulled from the bank wouldn't be able to see.
Mm. I think they will also just be so much more uh, motivated to go out there and be great than
Mm.
anybody else. So, with us wrapping up in our conversation today, y'all, we're going to hit on the last parts of the topic list. And the most important one being the economic aspect. And the economic aspect of this war has turned out to be that you can blockade the country that you are at war with economically. You can blackmail them economically as well. And that is exactly what Iran is doing currently. And it's working. So,
Yeah,
the main means of being able to break these blockades is through force. And you would think that the U.S. has the force capable to do that, but they currently haven't. Because ships are still getting hit in the Strait of Hormuz, and it is just currently raining oil over there because there's so much oil tankers being hit.
yeah, and I did I asked ChatGPT actually because I was quite interested in it about does the US have enough ships to do that, like defend the Strait, and you do, but then that means you lose out in other areas, so you'd have to divert ships from the Pacific and from the Atlantic over there, and obviously once those ships have been moved from that area, another friendly or another non-friendly nation can just step in and put their ships there,
Well,
and you lose
here's
influence.
the main crux of the whole thing is mines
Mm.
because it's been reported that there's already 10 mines in the strait. They don't know where, they don't know how they've laid them. So it could be all through the strait, it could be in the areas around it. People don't know. So it's just kind of the fact that we don't have minesweepers. We decommissioned those.
Yeah, you had four of them, didn't they? And
Yeah.
they were purpose built for this exact scenario, from what I've heard in this podcast. And you decommissioned them, and then you've got two other ships, which are more kind of like landing ships, I think, or platform ships that can do the job, but obviously they're metal. And another the chap that was telling on the podcast about, I can't remember which one. I think it was called Iran, the latest. He said, a lot of these mines will be metal or magnetic mines. So imagine you're being sent into the ocean to go and demine, and you're wearing a metal air tank, and you just get attached to this mine. Obviously, it depends how sensitive it is, but yeah, I don't think with the UK not getting involved, we've got a few mine hunting ships, but I wouldn't say it was anywhere near enough to clear the strait every day.
There's quite a few solutions that the U.S. could employ that I'm unsure as to why they haven't, but the Navy has a lot of assets to be able to fight this. And it's, I have my theories as to why they're not doing it because Hegseth is a fucking moron. But I, I think that they're just restraining a lot of the thought ability within the ground guys. And, they do have a lot of helicopters and a few jets and planes like the Poseidon that could go and find these mines and potentially cause them to explode by dropping munitions near them. So
Yeah,
it's stuff that there's solutions, but they're not being employed, and they're just kind of resorting to just being very violent and trying to use excessive force to get their message across. And I think it's failing because the US, as we know, is tanking right now economically. Oil is rising, gas is rising, and there is no like signs of stopping whatsoever from Iran. The U.S. has asked multiple times for off ramps. Apparently, the Omani minister tried to get to Iran to ask for a ceasefire. The Iranians told him to fuck off. So there is no off ramp right now.
mm,
It's
yeah.
just going to get worse.
Just a side note: Pete Hesketh is a walking GI Joe doll.
He's
He looks
fucking
just like one.
moronic, dude.
Yeah,
It is
but no, if you
awful.
look for a GI Joe doll, or if you're in the UK, look for Action Man, and he is a spitting image of that little plastic action figure. But
God.
no, I think you're right. I mean, the Straits closing has it's just it. It's shown how vulnerable we are to energy warfare. So most of the I think I've read something like 90% of the world's oil goes through there. It might be too high, but still, suddenly we're talking the day after the war broke out and Iran shut the Straits. Pump prices at the fuel pumps in the UK went up. Now, bearing in mind the fuel they're selling in those fuel pumps was bought weeks ago.
Mhm.
It's the shock reaction that forces the price up, and then suddenly people on lower incomes can't afford to run their cars. That might be their only mode of transport. That also means that public transport suffers. But not only that, it's the power as well. The things that provide us the energy. We need that natural gas and that oil to produce electricity.
Well, you pay at the pump what they are going to possibly pay to refill.
Mm.
So,
But bearing in mind that, right, so you're paying what they're going to pay to refill, but they're still making a crap ton,
oh
a
yes,
shit ton of profit
yes.
off of what they're selling you. To the point where a couple of years ago when the Ukraine war kicked off and obviously all the Russian oil stopped coming out, that the government imposed a levy against power companies or oil companies to say, look, we want some of this. It's like 60% of their profits or something, or 40% of their profits, because they were making absolute billions,
Wow.
jacking up the prices, even though the oil supply, yeah, fair enough, the world oil supply went down, but there was still enough oil. But they just jacked the prices up, so we were there like, you can't do that. It's figure, but money always talks, money always wins, isn't it?
Hmm.
They're going to see an opportunity to jack their prices up, and then just look at the stock markets. That's the other side of it. The stock markets have just plummeted because of this, and the oil prices have gone up, which is helping Russia.
Yep.
But it's and institutes aren't gonna fail, are they? Because they make money off this stuff. They pay people a lot of money to negate this. So financial institutes suddenly they see, oh, market's going to go up, we'll just short it. They'll make billions. It's average people like me and you that put our money into pensions and savings to try and make our lives better and make life
Yep.
easier later down the line. We're the ones that suffer. I mean, my pension's already taken a drop because of this war. It'll go back up, I know it will, but yeah. Average people will feel the effects of this far more than the US government or the big tycoons and the multi-billionaires will.
True shit, brother. Well,
Sorry,
with
that's me
that,
going off on a tangent.
oh, you ended this episode much better than I could have. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for hanging out with us, and listening to our discussion on the problems with modern war and the solutions that we thought of. So, you guys have a good one. Don't forget to follow and like, comment, and all of that good stuff, and take care of yourselves.